I think we all have a fear of dying alone. It's hard to articulate this feeling into words though, so I think an image is more suitable. Picture a small hospital room. You're lying there in bed, alone, dying. The room is dark, it's daytime but the curtains are down. There's the sound of a TV in the room next to you, but besides that, silence. You're all alone, and all of a sudden you feel something wrong. You want to cry out for help, but no one's there. You die, alone, with no one having visited you. These past years of my life have really got me thinking about death a lot. As an attorney, I worked in estate planning, and now I do probate work. So I'm constantly seeing and reading obituaries and dealing with death. More importantly though, in these last 3 years, every one of those years has been marked with a death in the family. It's been tough, every day I miss them, and out of these experiences I think more and more on my own mortality. I'm ghastly afraid of death, to be honest. But all 3 of my family members who have passed seemed almost at peace with their inevitable passing. I wonder if it has to do with age. No matter how much I think on the matter, or read on it, or study it, I think my age right now will prevent me from seeing death in a certain way. That when I'm much older, I'll have gone through a sort of natural acceptance of death. A natural calming of that topic. But this video isn't on the fear of death. To make any video about death in general would be hours long, so we have to break it down into these topics. This is about dying alone, our fear of it, and how we might address it. Maybe we're afraid of dying alone because of a fear of death in general though. Like we'd be experiencing this exit by ourselves, instead of with loved ones. What seems like the ideal comforting death, to me at least, would be to slowly die in someone's arms. Someone I trust and love, while they tell me that everything's gonna be alright. When you die alone, you don't get any social outside comfort. You're kind of just thrown into the deep end. Or perhaps we're afraid of dying alone because it means that we failed in life socially. We failed to get a family or enough friends. We failed to meet certain social expectations of us, and now we must face the consequences. For introverts like me, this especially rings true. I like being alone and independent, and as a result, I don't hang out that much with my friends or family or lovers. But will this love of independence lead to less people at my deathbed? Will I have failed to satisfy a certain expected element of life? But sometimes even having these great lives of social interaction don't guarantee a social death. One of my grandfathers, for example, passed away unexpectedly in his room, alone, and yet he grew a large family and had many friends. That being said, when you're experiencing a slow death, this allows for friends and family, and even if you do have an unexpected death, you'll have social interactions leading up to it. For example, I would call my grandfather every Sunday until his passing, just to check up on him, and I hope that amounted to something. One of my other grandfathers, on the other hand, he grew a family, but they all moved out of the city, and as a result, he was very lonely after my grandmother passed. I would do my best calling him every Sunday as well, but I lived across the country for law school. When I would call, he would often talk about the loneliness, and it was hard to hear as a grandson, without much ability to practically do much except call. I'd try to get him some coloring books to do something, I'd try to encourage him to talk to more people, but he wouldn't seem to budge on those things. The point is, despite raising a family and fulfilling, I guess, the social expectation of life, that grandfather of mine unfortunately was very lonely when he passed. I still think about him and if I could have done more, or what I could have done even. Because he was raised in China, there were also cultural and language barriers to him interacting with others, so he had things especially difficult for him. So if our social cultivation doesn't guarantee an escape from a lonely death, what can we do to address this fear in us? Well, for one, even though social cultivation doesn't guarantee an escape, it'll help your odds at least in the end. For introverts like me, that requires some sacrifice on our end, so think things through and try to socialize enough. Like a part of me right now in life doesn't want a family. I'd rather remain a forever bachelor with all this freedom to explore life. But that's another topic for another video. Point is, sacrifices need to be made to achieve that social cultivation, but it might help your odds in not dying alone. Secondly, another escape from this is religion. I'm reading a lot of obituaries from work, and many of the religious ones talk about being reunited with our Father in heaven. Someone on their deathbed reflecting on this future reunion might ease those pains of dying on an earthly level. Religion obviously also helps ease the fear of dying in general, because of the belief in the afterlife. So it's not so much a passing away as it is a passing onwards to something. Thirdly, it might help to reflect on the fact that we're all gonna have to go through the process of dying. Like it's a communal thing, I guess, in the abstract. Sure, I get flashes of fear thinking about how I'm gonna die, but then I remember everyone else is gonna have to go through that as well. And in a weird way, I'm comforted by the fact that we're all gonna have to cross that bridge. Maybe it's like how it was easier to get in trouble and go to the principal's office when you were in a group rather than alone. It might then help, as weird and as morbid as it may be, to talk with your friends about death and their feelings on it. Remember, you're never really dying alone. You're just dying at a different time than the rest of us. I had a fourth recommendation to get a pet, but then I thought about leaving behind a pet and the chaos that might bring them, and that made me sad, so I left it out. Personally though, I would feel very calm if I were to die and I had my cat laying on my lap, but that's just me. I want to say one last thing before I end this video, and I don't know if it'll make any sense. I keep my lost family members in my heart and mind every day. Although I don't know for certain what the afterlife holds, and I don't know what their own psychological state is currently, in my own mind, they're here with me. And hopefully when you eventually pass away, even if you are alone, you know that you'll live on in other people through the influence you had on them, and perhaps that calms your feelings of loneliness. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm writing this at 2 a.m. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And with that, I wish you all a beautiful rest of your day.